This
Because
conference will now be recorded.
This is my second call today where we've had some major technical issues. So
My
everyone for
I'm
your
so
patience
sorry.
and sticking with us. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Fitzsimons. I'm Vice President of Leadership and Engagement at Lead San Diego, the nonprofit affiliate of the San Diego Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our webinar series, Leading New Reality. And I thank you all for joining us. Thanks for sticking with us through the tech issues. I hope you, your teams, and your families are all safe and healthy, and that taking care of yourself as a leader and allowing yourself some grace and space as you are adjusting, readjusting, and reimagining your work and family roles. At Lead San Diego, connect, educate, and empower for positive change. And this webinar is our newest program, launched during this quarantine to serve leaders of teams and leaders of families. You can find out more about our programs on our website, and we'll include a link in the chat for you. Today, I welcome our friends from the Downtown San Diego Partnership who promote today's program. The partnership strives to create a distinct, world-class urban destination that captures the essence of San Diego at work and at play. So welcome all the Downtown San Diego people. Find their link the chat as well. So last week we talked about gaining some sense of control with our schedules and boundaries as leaders of teams and as leaders of families. This has been a really challenging time for many of us, obviously, and where we're feeling kind of oriented by that lack of structure and schedules, but also kind of feeling a little bit disconnected from ourselves and what we do well and what we're happy doing. So we're going to talk about strengths today, leveraging our strengths as leaders, leveraging the strength of our team, and the strengths that we have within our families. And it's our hope that today you leave this session feeling uplifted and that you have some actionable steps to take from our experts here that you can put into practice right away. This webinar is being recorded, and we're going to post the video to YouTube when we're finished, so you can share it later on. And my colleague and lead program manager, Kim Nguyen, who you just received many emails from getting us all back here, she is our host today. Kim, you want to say hi? Still with us?
Hi,
right, well,
everybody. Sorry for the
I'm
sorry, I'm replying to emails right now for folks who are trying to get in. So I apologize for the technical difficulties. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kim. And she asked me to recommend you all that if you haven't already done so, we recommend you adjust your settings to view who's talking for the best experience. And that's at the top of your screen where it says view everyone. You can just click on that and adjust it to view who's talking. So we're going to spend about 10 to 12 minutes conversation with each of our two guests, and then we'll take questions from all of you for about 20 minutes or so. So I'm really pleased to introduce our guest today. Nancy Maldonado is CEO of the Chicano Federation, where she and her team are driving impactful changes in the day-to-day lives of San Diego families who want a safe, stable life for themselves and also create opportunities for their children. She's a longtime community advocate with a strong commitment to improving the lives of marginalized communities. She's also a 2016 graduate of Lead's program. That's our professional development program. And she's a 2020 graduate of the Influence program, our program for C-level executives. Welcome to Nancy Maldonado.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone for joining us today despite the technical difficulties. Thanks for hanging in there.
Great, thank you, Nancy. Amanda Flisher is a self-leadership coach who works with high-level achievers and inspired humans, she calls us, who are undergoing huge changes in their professional and personal lives. She is on a mission to partner, guide, support, and coach curious individuals who want to learn more about who they are so they can apply it to everything they do. Amanda is a popular presenter at our lead programs, and we're delighted to welcome her back. Welcome to Amanda Flisher.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Elizabeth.
Thank you both for being with us today. We're going to start with Nancy. So Nancy, as the leader of an organization that works to empower families, there's a lot we could cover today in this topic. I'd like to start with your day-to-day with your team. How has your leadership as CEO shifted when you think about your own strengths? You're on mute, Nancy.
There we go. Yeah, so talking about the day-to-day, I mean, it's shifted so much, right? So Chicano Federation, for those of you who might not be familiar with what we're a 51-year-old nonprofit who works with children, families, and seniors, all from low-income backgrounds. And this is a population that has been profoundly affected by the crisis. And so my team and I are witnessing firsthand the deep impacts that this pandemic is having on our community. And we have a lot of work to do. So, talking about our day-to-day, I mean, it varies so much. Just this week alone, I can share with you what we've done, and it's only Wednesday. So, on Monday, we delivered food to all of the families at one of our affordable housing properties. Yesterday, we delivered cleaning supplies and face masks to childcare providers that are caring for the children of our essential workforce. And today, probably as we speak, my team is out delivering distance learning materials to our students' homes. So, in terms of my leadership style, I tend to be a problem solver. So when I see a need, I want to come up with a solution to solve it. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of needs right now. So I think that during this time, I was able to harness my strengths to come up with some innovative solutions for how we could meet the needs that we're seeing, and which includes, tapping into a lot of the partnerships that we have here with other San Diego nonprofits who share our similar mission.
What are you as a leader struggling with? When we talked earlier, you said you're really strategic and you've been kind of suffering being away and being in your home, right? Away from everything.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I'm struggling with is that we're seeing so much need and we want to meet those needs. And so, immediately we started receiving requests and phone calls, and we want to help people, and that's in our mission, that's in who we are. So, really not wanting to turn anybody away and being able to help everyone. And I struggle with that because I do think it is our shared responsibility to all come together and help everyone. But, there has to be limits to that too. So that's definitely something that I'm personally struggling with.
What have you noticed, Nancy, in your team, your direct reports, and then your broader team members? Like how are the strengths of your team showing up, or how are you helping them kind of get reconnected to those strengths?
So I have to give so much credit to my team, some of whom I think are listening now. While these past few weeks have been exhausting, I have never been more proud to work in nonprofit or to work alongside the people that I work with. They have really been incredible. Overnight there was a shift in our work, but my team has really stepped up to support our community at a time when they need it the most. And I think the strength of our team is that we do what we do because we care about our community, and we believe that we all have a responsibility to respond at this time. And that has really shown in my team's actions and in their response, and I could not be more proud of them. So if you are listening, kudos to you.
What kind of advice would you have for leaders of teams who their team members are really anxious, they're concerned, and rightly so? How as a leader can they help reassure them? But well, maybe it is reassuring them. Tell me how you that kind of anxiety and that kind of worry right now, and get them kind of connected to mission.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've often reminded myself, and I think is critical, that we continue to remind ourselves is to offer not just our teams, but ourselves a little more grace than usual. And I've noticed a big difference in how people are coping and dealing with the current situation, and people on my team have responded really differently. But I think particularly for my team, I think we've been able to draw upon the strength and the resiliency of our organization. Chicano Federation was created 51 years ago out of a need for advocacy for our community, and it was during the time of chaos and crisis. It's different than the one we're seeing now, but I have really seen my team draw strength from that and harness the power of our history to show up when it matters most. And I think that, tying it back to why our organization was created has been really important to our team, really tap into that and rise to the occasion.
So it's been like a grounding experience, right? Really grounding you in your why we're here, right?
Yes.
And then how do you take that out of this crisis, that new or that renewed connection to that mission and to the why?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just really tapping into the work that we do. And one of the things that, that I've been mindful to keep track of is the response from our families as we go through this, because I think that's important to remind us why we're here. We're here for our community, we're here for our families, and we're here to serve them. And, collecting that feedback and hearing from our families, that's something that we've done since COVID-19 reached San Diego, is we have called and reached out to every single one of our families regularly to just talk to them and ask them how they're doing. And the response that we've heard from that has been really, really meaningful.
Can you share with us some lessons learned from the families that you're in service to?
Yes, I can. So actually one of the misconceptions about our organization is that we only serve Chicano or Latino people. And the truth is that anyone who qualifies for our programs is welcomed and accepted. And our work is really around fighting for policies and programs that affect low-income children and families of all backgrounds. So we actually work with a very diverse group and a large percentage of immigrants and refugees. And so one of the things that I admire and respect so much about the people that we work with is that they are just so humble and kind. And at a time when they're being really deeply and disproportionately affected by the current situation, they are still gracious and grateful for any support that we're able to provide. And I certainly can learn from that, and I think that that's something that we can all learn from.
What are some of the creative ways you mentioned that that gratitude and the humility? What are some of the other things you're noticing that families are doing, or how are they tapping into their own strengths as a family, like within their family unit, to get through this time?
Yeah. So I think I see it the most in the distance learning aspect, right? I think that has certainly thrown a lot of families for a loop, particularly when we're talking about populations who might not speak English as their primary language, yet all the information they're receiving is in English. So we've seen families getting really creative in the ways that they're sharing resources, not just among their families, but amongst each other. And our team has been doing a great job of doing live remote sessions to ease some of the burden on parents. And locally, there's also some really great resources that some of our local education partners have been putting out to that are in different languages. But I think it's just tapping into community and all of those around them to help where they need it. And one of the points that I like to talk about when we're discussing the impacts of COVID-19 is the reality is that this crisis has highlighted many of the needs in our family the families have on a daily basis, but and they're certainly more widespread and amplified now, but issues of unemployment and food insecurity and the need for bill and rental assistance, these aren't new issues for the communities that we work with. And I'm glad that people are paying attention, and I'm glad that people care. And my sincere hope is that this concern for our most vulnerable populations, that it will remain an urgent priority even after COVID-19, and especially during the recovery, because the recovery from this and the fallout from this, it's going to be felt by our community for years to come.
How do you see within the family unit this experience changing the family dynamics?
Well, for the communities that we work with, I mean, they're so strong and so focused on family as it is, that I think that that they're going to come out of this stronger and really relying on each other and our communities in more ways than we've ever done in the past. I just hope that the community around them will rally and help everyone support them, because I really do believe that it's our shared responsibility to all support each other during this time.
Nancy, what's one thing that we can put into practice? What is a piece of advice that you would tell us to put into practice as leaders of teams and families?
So, I think as leaders and really just as people, we can all tap into how we're responding to the situation and the truths that it's revealing about each one of us. And I know that it can probably feel overwhelming to try to learn from this moment, but I don't think there's a better time for us to reflect and learn about ourselves, so that we can become better people, and we can become more effective leaders as we come out of this.
That's great, thank you. All right, we're going to shift over to Amanda. And at LEAD, we're big fans of the Clifton Strengths Finder, but not everyone knows what their strengths are. So Amanda, for those who have not taken their strengths assessment, are there other indicators that can tell us what our strengths are?
Yes. So again, thank you for having me. Nancy, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I took so many notes just from you speaking and your courageous leadership. So, so first of all, Strengths Finder, if you're not even familiar with it, it is a Gallup tool. There's a book called Strengths Finder 2.0, but you can find it online now at Access Strengths through Gallup. But what that test does is you take it, it's 20 minutes. Sorry, I apologize, 20 to 35 minutes to take this test, and it kicks out 5 strengths for you. So, but if you don't know that and you don't have that access to that assessment or that tool, where you find your strengths and what's happening for you right now during this crisis is find out what you do well, right? The idea behind strengths is that it's a positive psychology movement and understanding of what you do well. So it's tapping into the very things that make you gravitate towards stuff, things that you feel in flow, right? Where you feel excited and energized and you want to do more of. So like Nancy said, she's really strategic. She really brings that in. I know Elizabeth and I have talked about our strengths multiple times. Those little inklings that you have, write those things down. What did you do well before the pandemic? What were you doing then at work that you can bring into here and realize what you're doing really well now, that maybe you just haven't tapped into yet. So. And
okay, that's a good scene setter. Yes, and go take the test.
Go take the test. Is what I'll tell you.
What are you seeing right now in the leaders that you're coaching? What are they struggling with? What's going well? Like, what strengths are doing well in this environment? Which ones are having a hard time? Tell us what you're seeing.
Yeah, so overarching, I've spoken with so many leaders over the past 6 weeks about, I'm sure all of you felt it. There's like first couple weeks shock, state of shock, like what is happening, and then moving kind of into grief of the loss of things, right? Like I, for one, was definitely the loss of my children going back to school with a phenomenal teacher. They just won't get to experience that again this year. And so there's just a lot of that that's happening for leaders too, where they're like the loss of employees, the loss of maybe paychecks right now, the loss of normalcy. So that was those first few weeks. Then it's moving into what can we do right now? And then I'm sure all of you felt we all hit a wall about a week ago. We're all just like, what is this? So, so to answer your question about what strengths are doing well or what's not, they're really all 34 strengths, or all according to Gallup, right? Or just strengths in general. We've all just kind of been depleted. We don't know where to go. We don't know what to do. So strengths are really been hit hard, like what we do really well and what makes us energized, because we just don't know what to do right now. We've been looking around the room for other leaders to tell us what to do. Or maybe we're just kind of running rampant and overusing our strengths, or maybe underusing our strengths. So to get you back to this idea of like, what are my strengths? You kind of have to take a time out. Like Nancy said earlier, you kind of have to take a moment to reflect what's going on right now, and just, it's a perfect time to take a time out and write down, what do I do well? What are those things, those inklings I love doing? What does my team love me for, right? Maybe I check in with my people. Maybe I have empathy with my people, or maybe I'm really strategic and an achiever. I go after big things. I'm a driver. I like driving our team. Tap into those things right now, because all the strengths are being hit. But some strengths are surviving a little bit more, but because people are rooted in their strengths and they know how their strengths work at the beginning of it. So yeah.
That helps. So what about strengths in overdrive? Can there be too much of a good thing?
There is always too much of a good thing. I don't know, that's like impossible sometimes, but yes, there is too much of a good thing. So when I'm teaching classes, and so for many of you, I work in the strengths field. So I work with strengths. I'm also self-leadership development, right? So I work with individuals, understanding what they do well, both personally and professionally, and so that they can, like Elizabeth mentioned, and apply it out to everything we're doing. So sometimes though, we have these strengths that are just, they're too much, right? Like for me, for futuristic, I have a futuristic strength. And even without that, I kind of knew, without naming it, I had this ability to really see down the line and vision planning what I want to be doing, what I can be doing. So right now, those first few weeks, it went crazy. I went into a place of what's possible, how can we do this? I was trying to help all my clients, and it just got a little too much, and it felt very overwhelming, right? It felt too much. So the idea behind this is that sometimes our strengths can be too much because they're in overuse. We're trying so hard. Those that have high ideation, those that come up with ideas brilliantly, right? It's amazing they have it. It can lead teams down rabbit holes, and teams are very much like, where are we going with this idea? You had 16 yesterday, right? So that's the idea, is that we have to kind of bring our strengths back to healthy, productive, and we all know what that looks like. It's just very messy in a crisis of how it looks. So if anything you leave here today from me and Nancy is like, get back to what you are good at you're strong at, and what you're naturally born to do. That will get you on track after this.
But how do we do that, Amanda? How do we get, because I feel like the fear and the anxiety is, like a curtain between us and our strengths, right? Like, how do we get through there and get out of fear and scarcity mindset, more into a mindset of abundance and reconnected to those strengths? Like, walk us through, how do we do that?
Walk us through all this thing. Okay, so first of all, we got to understand what you're talking about. So abundance and scarcity, there are a lot of ideas about this, but just simple terms. Abundance is the idea of growth mindset. Scarcity is a fixed mindset, right? So growth meaning you're open to things. If a door shuts, you're like, there's a reason that door shut, I need to go this other direction. You keep growing and moving. It doesn't mean you're trying to hustle. That's the number one thing I need to let you all know. You do not need to create calculus or find gravity or find some world-renowned thing right now in the pandemic. And there's a lot of my clients being like, I feel like I have to do so much. They're so overwhelmed with this idea. They have to produce something, amazing. So that's the first thing. Open-mindedness is just the idea, right? Can you be open? The other thing is finding out if you're stuck. So a lot of leaders have found that their employees have gotten really stuck, or leaders have gotten really stuck. And that's a boxed in thing, and that's what scarcity is, thinking you can only manage what's been given to you or what's in front of you. So like with Nancy, what she was saying was there's a lot of growth that they're doing over there, and trying to do new things. They're in the field right now. They're doing whatever they can possible with what they have and resources they have. A lot of companies are like, I don't know what, they get really stuck. So that's the first thing, is to open yourself back up to what is possible right now. And you all got to let go of what was It's not coming back for a long time, right? What was 6 weeks ago, we have to move to a new normal. So that's also a growth mindset. Fixed mindset is waiting for what we had before to come back. We have to think new. And so when you're doing that with strengths, that's what helps you, is reroute yourself or reroute yourself into your strengths. And that is a growth mindset. It's just finding out what you do well will help you get rid of that scarcity mindset. So I hope that helps, and I hope that makes sense, everyone. But it's this idea that, like, when you feel more in control and understand yourself, you are very much more open to new ideas and new possibilities.
How about Amanda, for team leaders who are working with their teams, and their teams, you know, in the old situation were like, oh, they were doing so well in certain areas, and now they're kind of like they've hit the wall, and
Yes.
they're like what's happened? You know, this is one of your best, you know, this is one of your best strengths. So you've kind of walked us through how we do that for ourselves. How do we do that for our team members as leaders?
So first and foremost, you have to do it for yourself. That is my biggest thing, and why I choose self-leadership to be a coach in this space, because those that can lead themselves will lead their teams. And you've got to go first. You've got to model it. So once you figure it out for yourself, ask the tough questions. How's it going for you? What is getting in your way? You know, these things that were so easy for you back then, why is it struggle? Why are you struggling right now? And listen. You know, the big thing I've heard from employees about their employers is that they're not listening and not having compassion for what's going on for each of our families right now. Because all of us across the board are trying to be teachers. We're trying to be, you know, spouses and stuck in homes. I've got a client, she's got 5 roommates, and she's like, I don't, you know, like, this is crazy to me. We're all trying to work at the same time. So we're navigating all this together. And so you've got to model it first, and then ask them, what will help you? What's getting in your way? How can I help you move this thing out of the way so we can get you back on track? And, you know, I'm guessing it's a lot of fear that people are just having, and also a lot of tools missing to communicate these things, right? Like, we are just not built to communicate up or out. That's just a big thing that sometimes we're missing. So ask, as leaders, ask how your people are doing, and that should help open the door a little bit more.
That's great advice. Thank you. Amanda, what is one thing you'd like us to put into practice right away?
Your strengths. Oh, no. So I would say 2 things, actually. One, find out your strengths. Find out, I apologize, this is like my 4th panel today, and I'm like so excited and passionate about this stuff. So the strengths all the way. Strengths is what's going to get you through. It is the foundational piece of everything. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you have food, water, basics. In the positive psychology world, strengths is foundational. It's the only thing that's going to get you through, because then you know yourself, you know what's missing, you know what you need, you know how to ask for what you need and want. So that's the first thing. Get to know your strengths again and root back. Second thing is gratitude. What can you be grateful for right now in this moment? Because in positive psychology, if you can name 3 things you're grateful for every day, you will be more open-minded and more in a growth mindset. And it just makes you feel freer to know that you're in control during a crisis. So those are the 2 things I highly recommend we all walk away from here doing.
I love the idea of the gratitude journal. I've actually just started jotting down little notes about, I titled it Silver Linings. And, you know, one of them was that my children are learning to, you know, just do nothing and just enjoy an afternoon outside.
Yes,
so
I can't even, like, yes. And as a mom of a boy who just wants to be stuck behind his TV screen or some kind of app or something, my gosh, this child has never played more outside in his life. And I'm so grateful. Like, I'm just grateful for the slowdown. There's, you know, another thing that I think you and I've talked about is the adrenaline this country has had forever. We thrive on adrenaline, and as a whole, we're all slowing down. And this is also part of the grieving process of, like, how do I slow down? How do I not keep producing? How do I just get and reroute yourself back down to your strengths? I promise you'll get there.
That's great. I love it. So I just want to invite everyone to send their questions to Nancy and Amanda, and we will get through as many as we have. As many as we can, sorry. In the meantime, though, I'm going to start with a question that came over to us by email, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, Nancy, but let me read it here. It says, my team of 25 prepare and distribute meals to people in need throughout the community. There's a lot of fear among them, and I found myself giving pep talks way more than usual, and of course, listening to their fears and worries and empathizing with them. They also feel passionate about the job they do, but sometimes feel afraid. Nancy, can you please respond to this one? And then maybe Amanda, please add your thoughts as well.
So I think the most important thing that our teams and people want to know is that as leaders, we care about them, and in this particular situation, that we care about their health and safety, right? And that it's a top priority, as it should be. So I think it's important to honor and respect that. And I think that as a leader, I have a responsibility that if I'm going to ask my team to be on the front lines, which I am, because that's what we do, I need to provide them with all the things that they need to feel safe. And in this situation, it's the gloves, the masks, the hand sanitizer, et cetera. But so the other part that's really important to me personally is that I would never ask my team to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So for the work that we do at Chicano Federation, if there's a food distribution or any reason that we need to be out in the community, I'm right there beside them because I think it's important. And one of the things that I talk about with my team is that we all have the same shared job description, and that is to care for, to uplift, and to support our community. And we all share in that responsibility, regardless of titles, regardless of positions.
I love that. Amanda, what do you have to add?
No, that was beautiful. I just think that, modeling the way is huge, right? And the big question I've been getting through some of these is like, well, my bosses aren't doing this, or they're, it's a lot of like pushing up and saying, well, I can't do these things because they're not. Self-leadership is about leading yourself and knowing what you can control. And then, like Nancy said, if you ask your team what you're willing to do as well. They're like, ask them, she said it so much better than I did, but it's, take care of your team, those that are down, that are below you, that are out, everyone that's around you. That's what you can control and help, and making sure that they're taken care of. And like I said earlier, just check in with them and see how they're doing. A lot of people are making split decisions based out of fear, and that leaves people a little stuck. So just check in with them and see how they're doing. But again, lead yourself first, model the way, and then they will follow.
Can we talk a little bit about strengths within the family unit, and kind of knowing what each person is good at and giving them the space to be good at that in this odd, strange time that we're in?
Yeah. Do you want me or Nancy to go on this one? Do you want me to go?
Why don't you start, Amanda, and Nancy can chime in.
And follow up. So first and foremost, we are all our own people. Like my sweet little boy who would love to just be outside, he's got to get some schoolwork done. But I also know he has high achiever and competition. And that's just without him taking a test. I just know this about my little guy. So it's honoring that, knowing that like he's not going to be motivated unless I create some kind of chart for this kid to go through, right? So it's honoring each of these guys. I have a 2-year-old as well who's definitely not understanding what is going on. Why am I home all the time? And so honoring that with her and just, dealing with her struggles and being a little bit more patient with her. And then my husband's a high school teacher. That is another whole ball game they're all trying to figure out right now. So honoring his strengths, which is he's all strategic type strengths, and he has high responsibility. And so he's in it. So when he's in, I know I can't even like knock on a door to me because he's just totally tunnel vision. So it's knowing that about ourselves. And so what I highly recommend when it comes to strengths in the families is over communicate right now. It can't hurt you. Over communicate, ask for what you need. Tell them you need to get out and take a walk. It's been a lot of everything going in here, or you need more time with the family doing something else outside of work. I just communicate what's going on for you is the biggest thing I can share with all of you when it comes to our strengths. And so.
That's great. What do you have to say, Nancy?
Yeah, I would say the same thing, right? Just kind of know what you're good at and be okay with being that. So, you know, my same thing. I have a child and his school very quickly went into remote learning, and I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to make sure he was completing everything and make sure he was, you know, doing all of the assignments. And it was really stressful for me, and it was in turn really stressful for him. And when I just kind of took a step back and just, you know, really relaxed and thought, you know what, it's okay. We're all doing the best we can right now. It made things so much easier for us in my household. But so I think I would echo that: ask for help and ask for what you need. And right now, self-care is as simple as sitting in your car for a half an hour, right? And tap into your community and the people around you. So for example, you know, with my group of friends, we've been sharing apps that have been working really well for us, and, you know, sharing the logins and things like that. But tap into the strength of the people around you also. You know, for example, my son, when I had to, you know, do something that I needed him not to interrupt me, I sent a text to my neighbor and asked her if her son could play catch with him over the fence, right? So getting really creative about the people around you and how we can all help each other right now.
That is such a great idea. I love that one. I think we're going to try that over here. I would leave these webinars with some kind of like great, brilliant idea. Catch over the fence is a good one. And I just want to amplify what you said, Nancy, about not having to do everything, and to just be mindful of what's working and what's not working. Like, you know, I have twin boys who are first graders, and it's not working for one of them to do an hour and a half of reading what that his schedule says in the morning. It just doesn't work, but he can do 30 minutes. So that's what we're going to do, you know? And I think it's just a lot of this is trial and error, and figuring out what is realistic, and also what works for the whole family, not just the child, but everybody's schedules, and kind of adjusting accordingly. But it does require a lot of creativity. And you mentioned, you both mentioned self-care. Do you think that this is a question for both of you. Do you think that this whole experience has kind of pushed us to choose a healthier work-life balance, and for, you know, the foreseeable future? I mean, and the new normal, is this kind of been a resetting of how we take care of ourselves?
Well, I'll speak for me and my team is, no, I think right now it's done the opposite, because really the needs are so great that I know I'm working around the clock, and I know that my team is too. So I think right now, with the sense of urgency, it's hard to pull back and have any semblance of work-life balance. But I hope coming out of this that we are able to reevaluate some of our priorities and some of the things that we prioritized in the past, and really focus on what really matters.
So maybe a values reset then.
Yes.
What do you think, Amanda?
Yeah, I would say literally that's the thing, is that everyone's like, I'm trying to balance, but it's really hard when you're literally just moving from this space here and then out the door right there, right to the next space. So I don't expect everyone to figure it out right now. It's almost like with that thing where we're treading water. We're just like right here. You can't see above it when you're treading it. So I think once we get some breathing room above the water, we'll be able to see what we want to keep, what we don't like, what we appreciated during this time. You know, a couple of us, my girlfriends, we have this idea of like, what's the one thing we're going to continue doing outside after this that we just weren't doing or making time for before. And so I think all of us can find one thing for self-care. And self-care isn't about like, you know, the things they always preach about, the massages and the nail salons and all that stuff. It's really, for me, what I try to tell everyone is your strengths. What does your strengths need? And sometimes what are they missing? That's self-care. That's taking care of yourself. So give yourself space. It doesn't have to happen right now. After all this is done, it will come back online.
Be sitting in the car.
Yes. Yes. Long drives.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I'll go to the mailbox, you know.
Oh my gosh, my parents, they literally argue who's gonna do the dishes. They literally like push each other out of the way. So Little things.
We have a question here from Michelle Tillman, who asks, what are each of your strengths? I heard some of it mentioned, but don't recall if each of you shared yours. Amanda knows hers for sure. Nancy, do you recall your strengths beyond strategic?
You know, that's my favorite, so I think that's the one I choose to remember. Gosh, I would have to really think about some of my other ones, but I think too, you know, Amanda's point earlier is how you can go overboard with your strengths, right? So I've had to kind of reel that in sometimes because the need is so immediate that I tend to talk about big picture and be really strategic, but right now, you know, there's not a lot of space for that because of the urgency in our work that needs to be done now. So I wanted to touch on that yes, there is such thing as going overboard with your strengths.
Yes, definitely. My strengths for everyone are, because I live and breathe this. So harmony is the first one, futuristic, consistency, focus, and includer. So in terms of what's missing, my high includer is missing big time right now. I miss being around friends and people. It's so hard. It's just so hard. I see my neighbors who are some of our best friends. I'm always like, hi, I just want to hug you. So I feel like our strengths are being hit a bunch of different ways. But again, then my futuristic focus is able to come right in and able to think about the future and help other people in new and completely different ways. So yeah, understanding our strengths is huge, because again, like Nancy said, we can overuse them real quick. So, and it gets in our way.
Amanda, tell us about your friend who got reconnected to her strategic.
Oh, yes. So a very good friend of ours, her entire business went, you know, just overnight, just gone, right? 6 months worth of work. You know, the work that I do, we're in front of people a lot, we're with people. And so this good friend of mine, or ours, just evaporated, right? Her entire thing. So her strategic just literally went away, and she's very strategic. And I've known this woman for so many years. And anytime I have an idea or a plan, she's like already got it like all lined up. I've never known her to not have a plan. And I watched her like literally just, I have no plan. Like she very much was like a blank slate. Like, I don't even know what to do. So we followed up with her, you know, a bunch of us, and she ended up using her strategic to do something very simple, very you know, mindful actually, which was the coloring, adult coloring, right? Like where it's like these really intricate details. And she loved it. She's like, I got to use my strategic in a whole new way that I didn't even realize. And it was gorgeous. She showed it to us and we're like, oh my gosh, this thing is amazing. But it got her online with something so simple, and it literally got her reconnected to her strategic and what it can do and how it can be applied to other things. It doesn't just have to be applied to big business goals and big marketing goals. It can be applied to something so simple as, I'm going to be strategic about what I'm cooking for dinner this week. I'm going to be strategic about how I'm going to communicate with my team, right? Or how I'm going to color this page. So it's really fun to see how strengths are actually coming online in completely different ways. And I think, do I have time to share the one about my aunt? I love her so much. So my aunt, like, she's so sweet, and she's retired, very big, you know, heady type person. She ran a very large department at UCSD, and, you know, she's just been, you know, hanging out in her place. And I just thought, oh gosh, I got to check on her during this whole thing because I'm worried about her. I want to make sure she's okay. She taught me a million things. She ended up using all that thing that she knows how to do from her old job, and she connected her entire community with college students and those who really can't go out because they're, you know, high risk. And she made this huge spreadsheet, connected everyone. She's so proud of herself, and I loved it. It was her strategic, like all her, you know, all her strengths coming online in a different way. So again, don't be so stuck on using things right here in front of you. Think outside the box on how your strengths can be used. You'll be amazed at what you can do.
I love that. That's one of my strengths, is strategic and maximizer. And I've felt a little bit like, I don't know what I'm doing right now.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but it's slowly coming back. It's slowly coming back. I'm just going to do one more question, and this one is for Nancy. It's from Rosa Maria Hernandez, and she asks, other than family and the results of your organization, what motivates you as a woman and leader?
Great question. You know, my son, yeah, anybody who knows me knows that, you know, I talk a lot about the influence that the work that I do, that I hope will have on him. And actually, I'd love to share an example, right? Because I think all of our kids are privy to our conversations, and I have a 7-year-old coworker who's sharing a space with me and is listening to my phone conversations and things that I'm going through. And so one of the things that happened is a couple of weeks ago, I went in to pull my wallet out of my purse, and it was really heavy and bulky. And I realized it was filled with coins. And he must have seen the look of confusion on my face, because he said, "Oh, I heard you talking about how some people might lose their jobs. So I gave you all of the money from my piggy bank. I hope that helps," right? And so that to me is so meaningful. If I can impact him and help him be rooted in compassion and empathy for other people, then I think that will be my greatest work.
Oh my God, that is so beautiful, Nancy. What a story, and what a young man you're raising. He's taking right after you. Oh my God. Yeah. There's a chat comment. Okay, now I'm crying. Yeah. You got it. Oh my God, what a way to wrap this up. My goodness, that is really wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you, Amanda, for helping us get reconnected to our strengths. Thank you both for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. It was a really great conversation, and I hate to close. Next week, we're going to be joining with the Downtown Partnership to dive into leading through crisis. And so you'll hear from a seasoned executive and an organizational development expert on how to steer your team through crisis. And you can find our first 2 webinars on Lead San Diego's YouTube channel. Again, thank you all for joining us today. And on behalf of Lead San Diego, I wish you all well, and I hope to see you again next week. And thank you again to our guests, Nancy and Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.